Hello fellow social workers. In today's video we are going to learn about a concept which is very crucial for our practice as a social worker, and that concept is about the able-bodiedism. Now it may be the case that you are hearing this word able-bodiedism for the first time in your life, but bear with this video, and after this video you will understand its meaning in entirety and what we as a social worker can do to counter this particular issue. So the first question in front of us is that what exactly is the meaning of able-bodiedism? So to understand able-bodiedism, you must first understand that every human being, no matter how good or bad, every human being by just the nature of being human have some of the biases in their mind. These biases in psychological terms known as the heuristics. In some separate video we will talk about the heuristics, but first understand that every human being has some of the mental shortcuts which are known as the heuristics or the biases. Now these biases influence our behavior. Even if we don't know about these biases, we might not be aware of our biases, but our biases affects our behavior. Now same goes for this particular concept of able-bodiedism. Now able-bodiedism is nothing but the assumption, and assumption where we assume that people who are having able body or people who are not disabled, they are having superiority over the people who are disabled. So it means that the able-bodied people are superior to disabled. Now disability could be of three types. It could be sensory, it could be psychological, or even it could be a physical disability. Now uh, in this particular assumption, we are assuming that people who are having psychological, sensory, or physical disabilities are inferior. Now this means that in a society we are creating a culture. In a society we are creating a distinction between what is normal and what is not normal. Normal means if a general population has a common characteristic like two legs, then that is a common characteristic, and every human being should have two legs. If they don't have two legs, they are not normal, and thereby they are disabled. And as they are disabled, they are inferior to people who are having two legs. This is nothing but the bias. It has nothing to do with the reality. It may be the case that if someone is psychologically disabled, they are performing very well in a society. It may also be the case with physically and sensory disabled people. So it has nothing to do with the reality. It is just the assumption that every individual should be normal, and if they are not normal, it means that if they are abnormal, they are inferior to the people who are normal. Now extension of this thought is into our bias, our cognitive bias. And that bias is that whenever we are designing any social or physical space, or let's say a social or physical uh, environment, we tend to think that this environment is only going to be used by the people who are able-bodied. Now, by having this thought, we never consider about the people who are disabled, and thereby we create an environment which is not accessible to people who are having something lacking in their physical, sensory, or psychological arenas. Now, this is the whole understanding about the able-bodiedism. And now, what we as a social worker can do to prevent or to make a society which is not having this cognitive bias, or which is not having this phenomenon of able-bodiedism. So first and foremost, we all will have to understand our own biases. At the end of the day, we are also human beings and we do have our own biases. So it may be the case that we are also uh, uh, a prey of this particular bias that we are, if we are able-bodied, if we are normal, then we are superior to disabled. So first and foremost, we'll have to work upon our own bias. We ourselves cannot be biased, and with the slowly and gradually being aware about the biasness and working upon it, we ourselves can become inclusive in nature. Then there are four strategies to my understanding which we can employ to deal with this particular issue at a societal level. First and foremost, we'll have to advocate for more and more accessibility. What does this mean? This means that we'll have to make sure that every new environment, be it on a physical level or on a social level, is created with one thing in mind, that it is not going to be used by only able-bodied people. That particular environment will also be used by the people who are not normal in societal terms. Let's take one example, and which is the government is also doing at its level. Let's take one example. If a government, or if a state, or let's say one NGO is building a public urinary, they must keep one thing in mind, that avoid putting stairs there. And even if you are putting stairs to reach at a height of the urinary, you make sure that you have a ramp which can be used by the people who are having physical disability. One more thing is that the accessibility also includes the social level environments. So let's say we are designing a policy for a society, then also we'll have to make sure that there may be a case that there is some person who is not able or who is not normal in societal terms, and he or she might also use that policy. Like, let's say, let's take an example of a policy where every individual is supposed to visit a particular place to get a particular benefit. If there is a policy of this type, then we'll have to make sure that it is accessible enough for everyone. Even if someone is having a psychological disabilities, they can also take advantage of that policy. So how can we design such a accessible environments both at the physical and at the societal level? That is the first thing that we'll have to think in our practice, and we'll always have to advocate for this thing. See, we social workers cannot function as a state. State has its own function. Public environment, physical environment will be created by the state. Societal environment will be created by the society. What we social workers can do is we can advocate to make this physical and social environment more and more accessible. The second thing that we can do is about promoting the inclusive promotion of the inclusive language. Now, what does this promotion of inclusive language means? So like in India, we don't now we don't use the word like disabled. Even the word disabled is not socially acceptable, or at least legally acceptable word in India. This has happened as a result of government's conscious attempt to replace the word disabled with a more inclusive word like divyang or specially abled. So we'll have to push for this terminology at even societal level. One more dimension to this thing is that it is not just limited to the terminology or the language. We'll also have to advocate for, at the societal and at the state level, about creating not just inclusive terminology but also implementing that in its word and spirit. We may be calling disabled people Divyang, but if we are not thinking about them as equally abled people, and even after calling them Divyang, we are part of this larger bias of able-bodiedism, it will serve no purpose. So we'll have to make sure that every promotion of inclusive terminology just not remain limited to the terms only. Then we can educate and raise awareness towards the people. We can always educate people about what the definition of normal is not right. We can always advocate and educate for that. We can even raise awareness among the communities. We can raise awareness among the communities of even Divyang people, that they are not different. They are just having something more or something other than the other individuals. And the last thing that we can do is promote individuals empowerment. If individuals are empowered enough, they will not face any of this discrimination in the name of the able-bodiedism. This whole issue of able-bodiedism needs our attention and action. We all social workers will need to come together to resolve this issue. I hope this video clears your conception about the able-bodiedism and what we as a social workers can do to reduce this bias of able-bodiedism from the society. Thank you.